Happy Thursday, everybody. Today we're going to be doing the Mono Red Goblins gameplay video. And this is one of my favorite decks. It just reminds me of when I was a kid. One of my first decks that I ever played was Mono Red Goblins. And right now we got, Krenko during Foundations really breathed life into the archetype, along with like the Burnout Bastronaut. If you are running the Cacophony Scamp before it goes away in rotation, that's a pretty good option. This one's running 4 of the Draconautics Engineer. There's a couple of different variants that you'll see. Agatha's Soul Cauldron gives you some graveyard hate, while also being able to give your goblins that have died kind of give their abilities to the goblins that you have on the field. Like the Howl Squad Heavy and the Krenko Mob Boss, any of the activated abilities, the Draconautics Engineer. So it kind of gives you like this graveyard hate as well as just kind of the late game strategies as well. And so this one is very similar to the Celestia Rabbits build, which honestly they haven't been performing particularly well for me on the ladder because I haven't been bumping into mono black. So if you look at like the most common deck that is the most popular deck from Platinum to Mythic in the last week has been mono black mid range, and I have bumped into it not once in the 3 hours I've played, which is a small sample size. By no means is it conclusive, right, by any means, but so Seer Slicer Goblin is why I kept this hand. There's a couple of goblins that I'm looking for in my opening hand. Seer Slicer Goblin is up there as one of the best ones to find. The Runevelt Horde Master, which is rotating, is another one that I'm looking for. It's also a 2-drop. The Howl Squad Heavy at 3, being able to give all of your goblins haste and the general go wide, makes that a pretty powerful card. And then for 1-drops, the 1-drops aren't as important for this deck. Obviously, if you have the Seer Slicer Goblin, you want to have a 1-drop. But I look for the Burnout Bastronaut. So forgive me, this is a little bit of an embarrassing misplay. I was, it was early in the morning. I hadn't had my coffee yet, and I was just kind of not doing particularly well with figuring out when I should use the Draconautics Engineer and trying to figure out what to do with this hand. Because, like, you really want to save the +1/+1 counter for giving all of your creatures haste. So in this situation here, I should attack with the 1/1, because if they block with the Bristly Bill, then I can trade it by sacrificing the Fanatical Firebrand, and I get the Seer Slicer Goblin trigger off of the raid anyway. So they can't really block. And then again, I'm reading this for the umpteenth time, trying to figure it out. And after all this time spent reading it, I think I still screw up. So right here, I'm so fixated on the Draconautics Engineer that I don't even think about using the Fanatical Firebrand here. So they tap for 3, they play Mossborn Hydra. Now this enters as a 1/1. They've already done their landfall. I should sacrifice the Fanatical Firebrand right now and kill this 1/1. And because I don't, I lose this game. Again, too much time fixated on the Draconautics Engineer. Because I was like, should I just give it the +1/+1 and then it can attack a little bit better, but then like on turn 5, like even if I had saved it here, I could like on turn 5 I could create the 4/4 and give it haste. I was just thinking that I was going to make the 4/4 here, and again should be thinking about sacking the Fanatical Firebrand to kill the Hydra. Does attack well because again I'll trade the Draconautics Engineer for the 3/3, and I get another 1/1 off of the Seer Slicer Goblin. Okay, and this is what happens when you don't kill the Mossborn Hydra in mono green landfall. They play a land, they point it at the Hydra. At that point, I should have killed it with the Firebrand. If at any other time, right? Like, should have done it by then. Ordeal of Nihilea is basically GG. Because when it attacks, if it has 3 counters on it, which it does, you sacrifice it and you get double landfall triggers. So this Mosswood Hydra is going to be like a 56/56, all because I didn't kill it with the Fanatical Firebrand. So be better than me. Don't make that mistake. That's why I'm doing these gameplay videos, is to talk about like where I've screwed up and where we can do, where I can do better. Yeah, so now opponents kind of playing with their food a little bit by playing the Llanowar Elves. There's not really, like, they've got way more than they need to kill me. Letting it play out, though, just because, like, how often do you see this sort of thing? So yeah, 52-52 Trampler. GG! And that's where I realized at the end, I was like, oh man, I had the Fanatical Firebrand the whole time. And they didn't even play it with, like, protection. They didn't even play it with a Snakeskin Veil up or anything like that. They just slammed it into the Fanatical Firebrand, and I didn't remove it. So that one was my bad. Alright, so second match here. Opening hand, we have the Runevelt Hordemaster. And I think that's all you really need to keep it, because the Runevelt Hordemaster really helps you draw into additional threats. Opponent is on the Surveil land for white and blue, so could be Azorius Omniscience, could be Azorius Control, Jeskai Control. The Roiling Dragonstorm, I'm pretty sure that they're the Azorius Omniscience deck. They discard a Mistborn Village, and the second card, if I remember correctly, was oh no, they just sorry, they just discarded the Mistborn Village. There you go, Mistborn's Village. Then they surveilled into the Omniscience. So here, being stuck on one is a little bit of a crappy experience. I was thinking that I needed to keep the Burst Lightning open, or maybe the Fanatical Firebrand open, because I was thinking about Abuelo's Awakening, which has been banned. So I probably could have just played the Fanatical Firebrand and attacked there. Just kind of gone shields down. Because here I basically, like, did one less damage. So we get to draw the other Fanatical Firebrand off of the Runevelt Hordemaster because something died. We hit land 3, and I decided to play the Howl Squad Heavy, even though that means we lose the 1-drop. Or at least I should. Okay. Because I didn't want to lose the 1-drop, I was contemplating playing it and keeping the Burst Lightning open in case they are able to animate the Omniscience. At this point, my brain dawned on me that the Repair and Recharge isn't going to bring it back as a 1/1. So keeping up the Burst Lightning, like, doesn't interrupt the interaction like it used to. It was too early in the morning. So Abuelo, or Philology Archaeologists, they're kind of just digging for their Repair and Recharge at this point. And we have Krenko, which comes down with haste, which is a cool interaction with the Howl Squad Heavy. Other goblins get haste. And then the Howl Squad Heavy, if you have maximum speed, if you have that little icon on the left up to 4, can tap to give you mana equal to the amount of goblins that you have. So figuring out the whether or not you should attack with the Howl Squad Heavy, or if you should spawn the 1/1 before you tap the Krenko to then tap the Howl Squad Heavy, the math can kind of get a little tricky. So right now, if I tap the Krenko, I can create a total of 8 goblins. I can then tap the Howl Squad Heavy to give me 8 mana, to then cast the Burst Lightning with the kicker and kill the Philology Archaeologist, or just shoot them in the face for the 4. I decided to go with shooting the Philology Archaeologist. I think you could just let a 1/1 die, and it probably would have been a better choice, because if I had just shot their face, they'd be at 7, and if I do double Burst Lightnings, I just win, right? So after all of that nonsense, they scroll shift, and that's going to be pretty sad for me because it's going to wipe the board. of all of my beautiful 1/1 tokens. So that's an interesting inclusion that we usually see more in best of 3, is the scroll shift to be able to bounce the temporary lockdown. Works really well against like Is It Prowess, where you have more of the 1/1s. The new version of Is It Prowess is a little bit less centric on just creating a whole bunch of 1/1s because it doesn't have the Corey Steel Cutter anymore. So a little bit of an older... It's an older build, but it checks out. And I'm surprised they haven't hit their combo by now. This is like 84 years as far as hitting the turn 4 Abuelo's Awakening, right? So we get another Howl Squad Heavy. They do stack with one another. I was thinking I needed to keep the Amonkhet Raceway untapped to give something haste, but the Howl Squad Heavy will already give things haste. It probably could have tapped differently here. And math-wise, I think I needed to swing one of the Howl Squad Heavies. This is another one where, like, the math is kind of tricky, right? So if I go to combat and spawn the 2 1/1s, and then tap Krenko, I have a total of 10 Goblins, which allows me to cast both Burst Lightnings. But to do that, I need to tap one Howl Squad Heavy, and I need to tap the Krenko. So if I attack with one of the Howl Squad Heavies here, I hit for 4 damage, and then 8 damage from the Burst Lightnings for a total of 12. So I don't swing one of the Howl Squad Heavies here, and I think it's a mistake. Because I figured that they had something like a Far's Dispersal to bounce a blocker, right? So if I swing the Howl Squad Heavy, then they use the Afara's Dispersal and they're not dead. Because they go to 1. So I decided to do this post-combat. Because there's no reason to do the Krenko plus the Burst Lightnings beforehand. Now I spawn a whole bunch of Goblins. They still have 3 mana untapped, so if they have the Afara's Dispersal, then they still are able to cast it. This is where I was doing the math and realizing I had screwed up, because I can put them to 1 here. And they bounce the Krenko, so I should tap the Howl Squad Heavy. Oh no, they did it at the end step, so I can't replay the Krenko. And I decided to go for this while they're tapped out, and I only have 9 because I let them. I did this after Krenko had been bounced. If I had done it in response, I could have done. I could have still done the other one as well because I had the Raceway. So I'm making a ton of mistakes right now, and so my apologies for not doing my best here. I didn't need to tap the second Howl Squad Heavy. I could have done this on the previous turn. I just let them untap. And they replay the temporary lockdown off of another scroll shift, which gives them another Roiling Dragonstorm trigger. I'm still left with 2 Howl Squad Heavies and they're at 1 life. So it's looking pretty good for me. And that's one of the nice things about this deck, is that the Howl Squad Heavies are on 3, so that they're a little bit less prone to getting completely blown out. Kind of like the Knight Errant of Eos in Celestia Rabbits. So they're able to play 2 blockers here. They're entirely tapped out. My Krenko will have haste. I hit a mountain here. Play the Krenko out. Again, think about tapping it differently with the auto tapper, because for whatever reason, it'll keep the Amonkhet untapped. And now we've got, what, 7 lethal threats, and they can block 2 of them, so GG. So even though I missed lethal that one turn, We could have gotten lethal, I should say, around the Afara's Dispersal if they didn't bounce before combat. But we got there in the end. And today I had two 750 quests to play red spells, so it's a perfectly fine day to play some mono red. Okay, so hopefully my brain starts working a little bit better. We have Grease Wrench Goblin into the Sear Slicer Goblin. It's a pretty good hand, so lots of Sear Slicer Goblins in the opening hand. And I like Grease Wrench over the Fanatical Firebrand on turn 1, because the Fanatical Firebrand can be kind of, like, has haste, so you can play it really on any turn. Whereas the Grease Wrench Goblin really pays off to get it down early. And I'm going to attack here with the Grease Wrench Goblin first before playing the Sear Slicer Goblin, so that I can get the raid trigger, or so that they have less information. Because if I play it pre-combat, they might counterspell my Sear Slicer Goblin instead of killing the Grease Wrench Goblin. Because it attacked, so I got the raid trigger, and it replaces the 2/1 gets replaced by a 1/1. And with the spring-loaded Saw Blades into Simulacrum Synthesizer, my opponent is most certainly Azorius Artifacts. And a turn 3 Simulacrum Synthesizer is pretty darn hard to beat. But a 1-drop into Sear Slicer Goblin into Howl Squad Heavy is a pretty good way to try to beat it. So we got another trigger off of the Sear Slicer Goblin, and we're at 2 speed. Opponent has hit 4 mana here and plays a Assimilation Aegis, decides to remove my Howl Squad Heavy. And, you know, that hurts. It spawns a 4/4. Now I don't have haste on my Krenko. If we were able to curve out, it was going to be beautiful to just play the Krenko and immediately get like 5 goblins off of it. So we have a couple of different... I could, 4 mana, I could do the double Burst Lightning on the 4/4 and swing in for 5 and put them to 11. But what I'm hovering there for and saying, oops, is I should have swung the 1/1s, because they block a single 1/1, and I hit for 2 damage, and then I get the 1/1 back. So I missed 2 damage there. They play Perilous Snare, which spawns another token, and they kill my Krenko. Things are looking kind of sad. And I drew a Draconautics Engineer and a Fanatical Firebrand, so I'm thinking I'll just develop the board. And now it's a little bit worse to attack with the 1/1s, because I would lose 2 1/1s and get 1/1 back. So now the attacks don't look as good. And if I remember correctly, I think they're going to slam a temporary lockdown here. I think they should swing the 6/6s first, just because, like, I might not block. They're definitely thinking through some line here. And they slam the temporary lockdown. And then I'm considering, is there anything that I can do that's worthwhile? I guess popping them with the Fanatical Firebrand makes sense, because I'm not getting anything back from the temporary lockdowns. That kind of resets the board. And then we get a Runevelt Hordemaster. I should be keeping a counter. How many games do I play where I see temporary lockdown? Because right now, if the amount of temporary lockdowns is higher than the amount of times that I see mono black, I'm not playing the right deck at the right time, right? Because like Celestia Rabbits, temporary lockdown and sweepers are the bane to this deck. So here I could exhaust the Grease Wrench Goblin and try to ditch the 2 Burst Lightnings, but I'm going to give it to him, move on to the next one. So tomorrow I'm going to be doing something that probably Azorius Artifacts, because it has the sweepers and is less... Like, if I'm coming up against a lot of sweepers, it's not a problem. And then if I do bump into this most popular mono black, it's also good at countering that strategy. It's worse if you're up against a lot of like strictly like Rakdos aggro is a problem for the Azorius Artifacts build. But I haven't seen a lot of people running the Rakdos aggro build. So Burnout Bastronaut is my one drop, along with the Runebuilt Hordemaster and the Seer Slicer Goblin. This is like one of the better starting hands I could ever hope to have. Opponent is on the Jeskai Oculus build, playing the Fear of Missing Out. And Burnout Bastronaut I really like because it enables the Seer Slicer Goblin so well and gets the speed started, which is important for the Howl Squad heavy. So turn 3 here, we go with a Steam Core Scholar. Try to get the Delirium up on the Fear of Missing Out. And then we miss the land drop, and missing the land drop really is bad here, because I would really like to be able to develop the board, play the Runebuilt Hordemaster, that sort of thing. So playing a second Seer Slicer Goblin here isn't the worst, because we can basically like get a free 1/1 out of it by attacking with our 1/1 token. I also kind of like the fact that we could use, like, next turn when we attack with what seems like just a 1/1 to get a free 1/1, we might be able to get a decent trade with the Fanatical Firebrand. But I kind of want the Runebuilt Hordemaster down before I start trading my Fanatical Firebrands. And they have the Abhorrent Oculus in the graveyard, so hopefully they don't have the recommission. And I was just reading, the Fear of Missing Out does have to attack to trigger the Delirium, or to have the Delirium trigger. And then we draw again, not hitting land 3, hurts. We have a couple different options we could do here. We could do the like double Fanatical Firebrand. We could just play the Hordemaster and swing a 1/1. And that would give us a draw. Now, it doesn't let us draw land. The Hordemasters only let us draw creatures. So attack with 2 there, because otherwise they'd have to trade a Steam Core Scholar, and they're not going to do that. And then we get the 2/2 replaced. That got blocked by the 2/3. But we got 3 Steam Core Scholars in the air, and things are not looking good for us. Opponent looks like they have removal, so they play Glacial Dragon Hunt, and they're trying to decide whether or not to kill the Hordemaster or the Seer Slicer Goblin. We go with the Hordemaster, which I think is a good call. And we're getting pretty close to toast here. So again, so that they can get the additional combat phase, they swing with the Fear of Missing Out. And I decide to trade the Seer Slicer Goblin here. We're going to have a hard time making it back from this position anyway, having been stuck on 2 lands. Yeah. We have a full playset of Fanatical Firebrands. And not much to get back into this game, but play the Runebuilt Hordemaster allows me to attack with the 2/2, and we get to speed 4. So now my Burnout Bastronaut has double strike. Not that it's going to do much. They play the 4th Steam Core Scholar. And hit us for 9. I get another Horde Master. And decide just to, you know, I should just swing all of it at this point because we just lose. So a little bit of just bad luck to start things off. Some mistakes as well as some bad luck. And if I remember correctly, today was particularly bad. So I take a little bit of a breather here, just to kind of like gather myself after winning one game and losing like 4 or something like that. And when I come back, you know, it was the beats continue. The beatings continue until morale improves. So the good news is that you guys said that you like to see videos where the losses are included because they're educational, and I like that. That works for me. So I've got the Seer Slicer Goblin and a 1-drop, so that's a good opening hand. We're on the play too. Like, in theory, these should be good hands. Again, better if they're playing things like Torch the Tower and Braids and whatnot. And so should be better with the Storm Chaser's talent, since there's less less sweepers or no sweepers. So here I was just debating about whether or not I wanted to play the Burst Lightning and the Fanatical Firebrand. Figured I would just allow them to block the 2/1 if they want to, if they decide not to. They play the Monastery Swiftspear here. They go for the Burst Lightning on the Seer Slicer Goblin. Makes sense. So we've got a couple of different options here. We have land 3. We can play the Draconautics Engineer. We could play like, it was pretty tempting to Fanatical Firebrand, sack it, kill the 1/1, Burst Lightning the 1/2, and just play the Grease Wrench Goblin. Because then we can play like the Draconautics Engineer and something else, give a haste. I decided not to do that and just develop the board. Generally speaking, in broad terms, it's usually better to play out your threats and then save the interaction for stuff later down the road, right? Like, I would really like to have the option of killing Vivi if they play a Vivi, right? So after I make that decision, though, I'm agreeing to take a fair amount of damage here because I'm not blocking with my Grease Wrench Goblin in this situation. That will largely just be a chump block. They hit me for 9, and they put me down to 7. And now I'm starting to feel a little bit more scared. Now I'm like, okay, maybe I should have done that like Fanatical Firebrand with the Burst Lightning, right? But fortune favors the bold, I suppose. I go with the House Squad Heavy here. And my logic on this is like, if it looks really nasty, I can block with the House Squad Heavy. And the likelihood that they have removal with 2 mana that results in my death is pretty low. They would have to play something like a Strangle and then a Combat Trick, right? So making it so that the Swiftspear can't be blocked, I definitely have to block the Prowess creature. And I know that my House Squad Heavy is just going to get killed, right? But they have to come up with 3 damage, and 2 of their things get pumped by a single spell, right? So like, that's a mandatory block. And surprisingly, they did it over on the creature on the left instead of on the Swiftspear, because it would have pumped to where it killed my House Squad Heavy anyway. So I should have been at 1, right? That was my opponent making a mistake. But I decided to make a mistake. Instead of shooting them, I decided to clear the board. Now that could have been 3 damage directly to their face. They're completely tapped out. I realize my mistake right now. 2 + 2 + 1 + 1. And go, oops. Could have just won the game. So I also could have done it in a different sequence there with the Draconautics Engineer give everything haste, I think. Or maybe that would have been one short. But anyway, should have shot them in the face. We still win the game. So there was still some questionable plays being had there. I think for the most part it was still okay to play it in the sequence that I did. Obviously, other than the missing the lethal. Because that's one of the things about Magic the Gathering is that there are pros and cons to a variety of different lines. So here we've got the 1-drop into the Runebelt Hordemaster. And starting out with the Grease-Wrench Goblin instead of the Fanatical Firebrand. Again, saving the Burst Lightnings for later. And we're up against a Cacophony Scamp. So Cacophony Scamp is annoying because it often leads to a 2-for-1 situation regardless of how I do it. So I'm going to attack with the Grease-Wrench Goblin. They do not block it, which I think is correct. And now I have to make a decision of, do I Burst Lightning and play out a Fanatical Firebrand? Do I Burst Lightning and hold up a Burst Lightning? Do I play a Seer Slicer Goblin and just let them have the Cacophony Scamp? Because what I don't want to do is end up, like, if I play the Horde Master, it's pretty much dead, right? So, like, what I decided to do here is play the Burst Lightning, accept the fact that they can just kill my Grease-Wrench Goblin and 2-for-1 me, and hopefully kill their 2-drop with the Burst Lightning. That was my idea. And they plot a Slick Shot Show Off. So this is the Rakdos aggro deck, and kind of wish I had hit a land there, because a Fanatical Firebrand into Seer Slicer Goblin would trigger the raid. So I decided to play the Grease-Wrench Goblin and keep up the Burst Lightning so I can shoot the Slick Shot Show Off. And they play a Monastery Swiftspear. Slick Shot Show Off. From the plot. They have 2 mana up. They swing. I decide to go for no blocks because my plan is to shoot with the Burst Lightning anything that they target with interaction. But it appears that they are being wise and not playing into it. So they pass with 2 mana open. I debate whether or not I should do a Burst Lightning here and let them manifest Dread off of, like, the Slick Shot Show Off and decide that I can keep mana open pretty well next turn. If we miss the land drop, we just play the Fanatical Firebrand and still hold the burst. But this way I can play the Seer Slicer Goblin and still hold up the burst. So now we're playing this little game of cat and mouse. And they just passed. So they lost 2 mana there, which is usually a good thing for us. They play a Cacophony Scamp. And a Wild Ride, which, as we learned from playing Rakdos aggro 2 days ago, gives the Cacophony Scamp haste. So here I'm deciding about whether or not I should just shoot the Cacophony Scamp, get the 2-for-1. Sadly, the Cacophony Scamp is also going to get to kill my Seer Slicer Goblin, so it's really like a 2-for-2. But I was worried about what else they could cast on the Cacophony Scamp that would make it even bigger. So, get the 2-for-2, and we're not looking in very good shape, because we're tapped out. And I don't particularly want to block the Monastery Swiftspear with my 1-1. They decided not to go for casting a spell there. So I have 3 mana, no way to really interact with the board. Just decide to drop my hand. I'm playing out the Burnout Bastronaut pre-combat so that we can get the speed boost. Get the speed up to 2. With 4 cards in hand and a Slickshot Show-Off on the board, I'm probably dead. Chances are pretty high. So we got 1 wild ride. Swinging both here, I probably should chump block the Swift Spear. But if they have like Dreadmaw's Ire, it doesn't matter. So they have Turn Inside Out, which would have put me to 2. Even if I did block the Swift Spear. And then they had the Dreadmaw's Ire anyway, so I was dead no matter what. So one of the downsides to the mono red Goblins build is that it loses to the more aggressive builds because you're more of a go wide strategy, like an aggro combo deck, than you are just a pure aggro deck. So the Rakdos aggro should win in that matchup. The Burst Lightnings help out in that interaction where you can hopefully get a 2-for-1 or shoot those Slickshot Show-Offs. But that's where the Cacophony Scamp really shines, and that's where Torch the Tower comes in handy, right? Because if you have something that can't shoot face but can just exile, then the Cacophony Scamp doesn't get those 2-for-1s. So here we've got Fanatical Firebrand into Runebelt Hordemaster, and then we've got an Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Seems like a pretty decent hand to keep. And we've got a Rune Lurker Bat. So here, I think I screw up by playing... Like, I should play the Fanatical Firebrand and I think trade the Rune Lurker Bat, because Mono White Life Gain is a bad matchup for this deck. And turn 2 Essence Channeler after Rune Lurker Bat, like, I would have at least been able to stop them from developing on that line. Because here I have no chance, right? I'm racing against Mono White Life Gain, which is not what you want to do. Mono White Life Gain loses to interaction. So we need to hit our Burst Lightnings, we need to hit our Fanatical Firebrands. And at this point, we could pretty much scoop it up. Essence Channeler is about to be huge. And I play the Firebrand now. Later, I can get in with the Bastronaut. And like maybe like chump block. This doesn't feel good. Runeville Hordemaster hit 2 lands, so we don't get any goblins that we can play. They play another Leonin Vanguard, which is going to give the Essence Channeler 2 ticks, and then they play another Essence Channeler. And curved out pretty nicely with the Mono White Life Gain deck. And yeah, they're at 20 life. It ain't happening. And this is what I mean. I just like today I couldn't buy a win. I've been playing for 40 minutes and I've won 2 games, which is tough, right? It's tough when that happens, but I've also played enough Magic to know that it does happen, and it's just part of the experience. And really, if I hadn't, I think what 2 of them I've already punted away, so I could be at 4 wins. So this one's a tough hand because Amonkhet Raceway and 3 Tree City are both colorless. I have the mulligan there, and I decided to ditch the Agatha Soul Cauldron and keep this one, even though it's only starting on turn 2, because the Runevale Horde Masters are quite nice. So, opponent plays a Seachrome Coast, and we played the Amonkhet Raceway, get the speed started. We're stuck on 1 red, which means I can't keep up the Burst Lightning, but it's not the end of the world. And Runevale Horde Masters are not legendary, so they do stack, which is nice. And they play Get Lost. Triggers, I hit a land. Decide to pop a map token with my colorless Raceway, because what else am I doing? And I draw a mountain. So we're up against Control with the Get Lost. Looks like Jeskai Control, since they just played the Thundering Falls. So here I've got an option. I can play Krenko. I'm suspecting that they have a sweeper next turn. So I probably should pop the map token and just play like 1 Draconautics Engineer. And I decide to play 2. They played Deduce. And Fabled Passage. And on turn 4, they play... I was thinking they would play like a Depopulate. I didn't play around the Wrath very well. They play a Caretaker's Talent. So this one, I go, what? Did not expect them to play a Caretaker's Talent. Would have been bad if they played a Beza there, too. So I've got the Howl Squad Heavy. And what I was thinking about here was kind of want Krenko down with haste, right? And at the moment, I'm 1 mana shy from making that dream come true. So what I can do is I can play the Howl Squad Heavy and give the Howl Squad Heavy haste. What I thought that would allow me to do is tap it immediately. I forgot that I had to have maximum speed to be able to get the mana. So I'm gonna struggle here a little bit as my brain tries to figure out that that line doesn't work. I think what's even worse here is that I don't use the map token. I think I give my Draconautics Engineer... yeah, so I give my other Goblins haste, thinking that I can then tap the Howl Squad Heavy. It immediately passes through, and I'm like, wait, why didn't I get to tap it? And now they played the Beza. So it's nice of them that they haven't played a sweeper yet. So now I have 5 mana, which will allow me to play... I shouldn't play the Krenko pre-combat. Well, I guess I can play the Krenko pre-combat here now that I have the Howl Squad Heavy in play. Gives all of my dudes haste. Anything here look like a bad trade? Like, we probably don't want to lose the Howl Squad Heavy just because of how much mana it gives me. What I should do is I should pop the Howl Squad Heavy here to get all of the mana, so that I can then Draconautics Engineer the 2 4/4s, right? Because if I count it out, right, we have 10 mana. So if I tap the Howl Squad Heavy pre-combat, we'd have 9, which would allow me to Draconautics Engineer both for the 4/4s and then give it haste with the 9th mana. And I'd even have 1 more mana left over for the Burst Lightning. But to do that, I would need to Burst Lightning their face to get maximum speed. So the sequence would be Burst Lightning them to get to speed 4, tap the Howl Squad Heavy, then exhaust the Draconautics Engineers. And it would have done exactly 11 damage, right? Because it would have been a 4/4, a 4/4. One of the Draconautics Engineers would have become a 3/3 instead of a 2/2. And then they would have taken the 2 damage from the Burst Lightning. So I'm pretty sure I had lethal on this turn if I had done a different sequence. And then I decided to put the map token on Krenko now that I've realized my mistake. So I decided to put the map token on Krenko because it gets around temporary lockdown. So if they go for the temporary lockdown line, I'm no longer toast. And then I was debating about whether or not it makes sense to do the burst lightning now instead of later, because I could tap the Howl Squad heavy, and I was thinking, well, if I get to untap, then I can do the Draconautics Engineer haste line that I missed. The fact that they're swinging the Beza means they've probably got a sweeper, and they go for the Sunfall, which is going to be the largest Sunfall anyone has ever seen. So if I didn't have lethal the turn before with the Draconautics Engineer, like if I left them at a low amount of life, we wouldn't have had the Burst Lightning in hand. But this turn right here, they're tapped out, they have no blockers, so if I draw a creature, I can give it haste off of the Amonkhet Raceway and win that way. So I definitely punted this game away as well. This was a winnable game if I played it better. But now that they have the 10-10 Lightning Helix for the Krenko to give them that life cushion to make them at 7, this is another one that just got away from me. Can't blame that one, though, on anything but my play. And they had to get lost, too. So that one feels bad. And I'm going to keep doing these until I have a game, you know, a video where I get 14 wins or whatever and 2 losses. Because this one does feel pretty bad, right? Like, this is a humbling experience to talk through. What I mean, like, what are we, 4 and 6 right now or something like that? 4 and 7. It's pretty bad. I'm not even sure I'm at 4 wins. All right, so we have the Seer Slicer Goblin. We're on the play. We have the Fanatical Firebrand. This should be a beautiful moment. We're playing against the Mind Sculptor, which is somebody who did the was it the metagame challenge back in the day with the Jace avatar? Gives you the Mind Sculptor, I think. Phage gives you the Untouchable. Sadly, I wasn't playing during either of those. So Amonkhet Raceway here gives us the speed boost. We get the raid trigger off of the Seer Slicer Goblin, giving us 3 goblins on the battlefield for the 3-tree city. They play Clay-Fired Bricks, so we're up against the Azorius Artifacts build, and they're tapped out, so there isn't really a... With the hand and everything, there's no real reason to not just tap out the 3-tree city. Usually you'd want to attack first, get the raid trigger, and then do it. Because they're tapped out, sequencing doesn't matter, really. And now, at this point, I was just convinced that I was going to come up against another sweeper, right? It was like, they're going to play another temporary lockdown. And if they do, you just scoop it up. They've got the mana to do it. They play the Iron Crag, so there's hope. They didn't play a turn 3 Simulacrum Synthesizer. They play a Spring-Loaded Saw Blades, and they get rid of one of the Seer Slicer Goblins, which is fine. We have a bazillion mana. I can't play the Firebrand first because of the having to activate the 3-tree city. But right now, the 3 Tree City is giving me 6 mana. So I could Burst Lightning and play the 1 Fanatical Firebrand. Opponent is probably like, why are you taking so long? Speed 4. No real payoff to it here, but so if they do have a sweeper, downside is that Burst Lightning will put them to 1, and 3 Tree City doesn't work very well when you have a sweeper, but it does work well on turns like that where you can get, you know, way more mana than you should. So at least I got to showcase that working, right? And here they finally don't have a sweeper. They're just gonna play like a Simulacrum Synthesizer and a Perilous Snare to get completely overrun. So we finally won a match. Games are like, what, 3 minutes long, 4 minutes long. We've been at this for 51 minutes, and that was my 3rd game that I've won. Sheesh. Tough day. All right, we're on the play. We have Grease Wrench Goblin, Draconautics Engineer, and the Seer Slicer Goblin. Again, I'm keeping this hand because I have the Seer Slicer Goblin. Had a lot of games where we had the Grease Wrench Goblin into the Seer Slicer Goblin. See another Cacophony Scamp. Play the Amonkhet Raceway to get the speed going. Play the Grease Wrench Goblin here. They might block because of the speed interaction, which is nice because then I don't have to 2-for-1 myself. And I still get the raid trigger, so that's why you really shouldn't block the Cacophony Scamp. It puts your opponent into a much bigger pickle to not block. And Swift Spear here is pretty easy, no block. And they play a second Cacophony Scamp. And here I was trying to figure out, like, how do I not end up with just, like, I accept... So if I swing out here, they kill my Seer Slicer Goblin. And it's kind of a 1-for-1 trade because we got the 1/1 token for free anyway. So what I like here is to swing first and then play out the hand. Surprisingly, no blocks, which makes me think that they've got dastardly plans for the Cacophony Scamp. So I play the Draconautics Engineer, thinking I can give things haste next turn, and I hold up the Burst Lightning, anticipating them to play some form of interaction on the Cacophony Scamp. And they play the Red Mages. I'm debating about whether or not I should shoot the Cacophony Scamp now or later. Swing in with the Swift Spear, decide to just let that one go through. And we have another game of the cat and mouse. Now, what's awkward about this one is that this cat and mouse, like, I want the Cacophony Scamp to be off the board before I play the Runevelt Hordemaster. So I'm debating, I could do the Burst Lightning now on the Cacophony Scamp, and they probably kill something that matters less than the Runevelt Hordemaster. So my thought is if they go to block something that's bigger than a 1/1, maybe they do the trick on the Cacophony Scamp. And so I'm hoping, because like the red mages will also become a 3/1. So I'm expecting to lose some guys here. And if I had one more mana, I could give like my Grease Wrench Goblin haste, which would be nice. But I thought, you know, like I can do the Draconautics Engineer. I'm not going to swing the Rune Belt Hordemaster. Don't really want to lose my Seer Slicer Goblin. The rest of it, I can accept losing. They surprisingly go for no blocks. I guess this is what happens when you lose for like an hour, is that the matchmaking system feels bad for you and throws you a freebie. Because like moving the red mages over for 3 onto Cacophony Scamp can't be the right line. It just can't be. I'm still flabbergasted that they haven't ever forced a 2-for-1 situation or traded. They could have blocked a 2/2 token that last turn and still killed the Hordemaster, and the 2/2 token would die after the Hordemaster died. So like, they could at least get a good card and a token out of the Cacophony Scamp. So now we have 5 mana, allowing me to burst Lightning their face for 4. So now I'm just kind of calculating up the how much damage we have on board. Can also just do the Draconautics Engineer and give it haste, which is another way to hit for 4 damage rather than the burst lightning. So we need 6 damage to get through. Which, if they have removal for the Runebelt Hordemaster, we don't necessarily have. So the most conservative option there is just to swing the 4/4 flyer and just play it slow. In case they have a shock of their own. So, oh my goodness, there we go. We've got 4 wins. So back when I said it was 4 and 6 or something like that, it was actually 2 wins and 6. Anyway, it helps not to be focused on the win-loss ratio anyway. It's just hard. It's hard to do. Okay, so we've got Fanatical Firebrand and Draconautics Engineer. Those are not what I'm looking for. And that may be a little bit of an aggressive mulligan, but like I really like having that Seer Slicer Goblin or the Runebelt Hordemaster or the Howl Squad Heavy. So this is a better hand in my mind. Mull down to 5 definitely hurts. And like I know some people would keep the original hand, and it probably is better than going down to a mull 5. Opponent is playing a white-blue land for the 3 steps ahead, so we know that there's some form of control. Problem with this hand is that Seer Slicer Goblin is kind of a crappy 2-drop. Because it's better if you can get the raid trigger. It gets countered anyway. Opponent plays a Stock Up, allowing us to get our 3-drop down on the board without a counterspell. Hitting the second Howl Squad Heavy was really good too. This is another one that, like, for whatever reason, I kind of think it should be a legendary. That's probably the best Beza has ever been. They get hit for 1 damage, and then they get the full the 1/1 tokens as well, because they were at 19. The only way it could have been worse is if they also got to draw a card. Okay, opponent plays Elspeth, Stormslayer. Creating some tokens. And we have Runebelt Hordemaster, Seer Slicer Goblin, and another Hordemaster. I'm going to play the Hordemaster out, because it helps my little 2/2s attack better. could Burst Lightning to keep one of the 2/2s alive. I don't think it's worth it. Especially because the Runevelt Hordemaster helps me dig. And we hit 2 Burnout Bastronauts. So again, the House Squad Heavies can't tap for additional mana until you hit maximum speed. And at this point, with Elspeth making 2/1/1s a turn, it's pretty bad. And we get hit by another split up, or by another sweeper. So I just think that, so I think what happened was the first week was Celestia Rabbits was really popular, and now Celestia Rabbits is less popular. People are more teched against it by running a lot of sweepers. Because if I go back and I just like count how many games did I play against a temporary lockdown, I feel like it's pretty high. And I also probably should have played the Runevelt Hordemaster here instead of the House Squad Heavy, just because then I could also, like, I could play 4 things from Exile. But the game's pretty much over after that Sweeper and Elspeth. So, again, another, that's like 3 back-to-back videos of kind of having a rough week. We could have done better than 4 and 7 if I hadn't punted. It definitely, I'm not saying that it's by no means is it the deck's fault. I hope this finds you well. I hope it gives you an alternative to Celestia Rabbits if Goblins are more your jam. And it's kind of it's a fun one to play. It's one of my favorites. So tomorrow I'm going to be playing some poker with some buddies of mine, so I won't be doing a daily gameplay video. And then I'm going to try to do one on Saturday. I'm going to start trying to do a little bit more of these gameplay videos. And then on Sunday, I will be going over my rotation. I'll probably do the rotation guide will be available to members before that, but the rotation will be available to everybody on Sunday. And then Monday will be the last best of 1, best of 3 meta review before Edge of Eternities. And then Friday will be my pre-release guide. And then the following week will be early access, where I get to play with some of the Edge of Eternities cards and do some drafts and things like that, which I'm looking forward to. And then the week after that will be the first week of Edge of Eternities. So some exciting stuff. Always fun when rotation is right around the corner. And thanks for watching. I know this one's a little bit of a longer episode because it's an hour of me losing, but I hope it finds you well. Hope it helps you be a better Magic the Gathering player. And yeah, take care, everybody. I'll see you on Sunday.